All right, well, good morning, everyone. Sorry for the hiccup here in the beginning, but today is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025. It'll be the last Zoom of this week because tomorrow, of course, is a national holiday. Great to get together with you. We've been talking about some organizational changes and really enhancements. We've talked about the new ownership group that's coming in. We talked about the focus on improving our physical footprint in communities across the country. We've had a lot of interest off of that topic, so we're going to dig a little bit deeper and actually talk about some best practices. So if you're considering having a branch office, as shown here on the screen, there are some things I think you should know. So we're going to go through those. At any time, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to type those into the Q&A. It's like a chat box. So let's start with the background. Just we don't want to make the assumption that everyone's been on all the prior training. So just to get you caught up, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We've received a grant. There are three mandates, three things we're supposed to do. First of which is to focus on improving financial literacy. A lot of people don't know what you know, right? You know that there's a formula for funding. Just like, is it a mystery that someone can get a mortgage to buy a house? Of course not. But a lot of people, they just don't understand, like you and I do, what it takes to get business funding. So that starts with pure education, helping them understand the truths and sometimes unlearn untruths. The second thing that our nonprofit does is since June 1st, the grant has been amended and we literally give away shelf corps. Well, why would you do that? Well, if you want business funding, you need to have a fundable business. Most people don't have that. So through the grant, we can solve that problem. And so that's the second mandate listed here. And then the third is we want to take that new knowledge and that shelf court and turn that into money into the client's pocket, into the grant participant's pocket, the business owner's pocket. So we can use this knowledge and the shelf court to get them money, 100,000 or more, 100,000 minimums guaranteed, to either start a business, grow a business, or even acquire another business. So that's kind of the big picture. Today, we want to drill into more of the distribution model aspect. So with our new ownership group and new leadership, the decision has been to revisit a concept that we had discussed before, but quite frankly didn't follow through on, but we are going to do that now. And that's to build local offices across the country, what we call branch offices. And this is a great option for those of you that want to be more involved than just a reseller and have, of course, a much greater impact in your community and corresponding income. Most, not all, but most of what we're doing with the branch offices is exactly what so all of us that formed the nonprofit, we used to work for the SBA. We work through local SBDC offices, Small Business Development Center offices. That's the distribution arm of the SBA. So most of what we're doing with the branch offices is built precisely off that proven national model. So we didn't have to go reinvent the wheel. We're just taking from what the government does, moving it into the private sector, and then giving each of you the opportunity to run a local office so you can monetize it. But let's get into the specifics today, some of the best practices. So within the branch office concept, there's a few things that you need to know of what's included. So as you're making a decision, do you want to run a branch office or do you just want to simply maybe just be a reseller? Let's go through, and again, this is exactly what we discussed yesterday. We just never want to assume that everyone was on the prior training. So you would not want to open a branch office if you didn't plan on making it a significant part of what you do. So does it have to be full time? No, we're not saying that. But we don't want to have a bunch of branch offices that are closed. Some of you become resellers, and I'm not trying to vent, but some of you become resellers, and it's like your business is closed. There's no business. We can't afford that with branch offices. We want to have a branch office in each county of each state across the country, and it needs to be open. So at a minimum, at the branch, and you should be able to do this as a reseller as well, but at the branch office, we want to help at least one person a day on average, 20 a month, and that puts you right at 100,000 a month, 1.2 million annually. Could it be a lot more? Of course, not trying to sell you anything pie in the sky. But if you're not thinking, at least at this size of an organization, this amount of revenue, this amount of profit, then don't consider becoming a branch office yourself. Geographic exclusivity, just like the SBDC model is, we want to have in each county one office that's responsible. Now, some of you are interested in having multiple counties, multiple offices, that's fine, but there will be one branch office per county. Now, within that county, you might have multiple offices, but we'll get into that on some topics here below in a minute. The goal is to have that local presence because as a reseller, frankly, you can go out and do a lot of these same things. You can help people, but by having a local office, you're more part of the community. You're visible. You're probably going to be seen as more credible. And it's really necessary to have a local office if we want to work with banks and key influencers. Otherwise, they might not consider you credible. It includes the reseller marketing program at no cost. We talked about that yesterday. A much higher level of training. If you're all you are is a reseller, and I don't mean that negative, all you need to know how to do is give away shelf corps, right? Because all the funding is taken care of by the finance team. In contrast, if you're running a branch office, we're still going to be your implementation team. It doesn't push that burden to you, but you do need to know more. And so we do that through in-person training. We have a lot of people that kind of call us and they expect to learn everything they need to know in just little snippets. That doesn't work very effectively. So in-person training is included, not the travel, but the training itself is included. Higher level of support than resellers receive. And just like, again, I want to be transparent. Branch offices are paid the same way as resellers. Both of them are tremendous, right? You're paid up front, the amount you want, whatever you charge, upcharge on the processing fee, 5% on the back end. It's just we're able to do a lot more volume, therefore, that's why it's more lucrative. And then we are providing access to 100,000 for your branch office, and that's going to tie into some of the best practices because we want you to have adequate funding to get the office, get it furnished, have staff, and so forth. But we're going to get into that in best practices in a moment. Are there requirements? Sure, sure. So as a reseller, there's really no requirements. No cost, no contract. If you can get someone to sign up, get paid. Branch office, higher level of involvement. So we must have a physical office, needs to be in your territory, right? So you wouldn't want to say, I want to run Miami, but my office is in Oklahoma, right? That doesn't provide geographic accessibility. There is a licensing fee, but they have a promotion going on, 50% off through July 15th. All right, so with that being said, now let's go ahead and get into the best practices. All of this was a bit of a revisitation of what we've covered already. Now we're going to get into new information. So let's talk about budget considerations first. Let me not give away my agenda here, and let's go through it. So budget considerations. Well, that's all right. We'll throw it all out there. These are the three topics we're going to go through. So budget considerations. So what do we know? We know you're going to have a $100,000 budget to work off of. So budget. So then you'll decide as the owner of the branch office, you'll decide how you want to use that budget. But what might you need? Well, you might want to allocate some of it, pay for payroll. We want these branch offices obviously to run in a compliant fashion. So if you're going to be running it, getting you as a W-2 employee of the branch office, you don't want to be an independent contractor. We'll set up a direct deposit, weekly payroll. You determine what it is. For most of you, it's $5,000 a week. But we want to have money for you and whatever staff you want. If you want to run it as an individual, you can. I don't think that you'll be able to reach your potential, but we need that budget to cover payroll initially, the office, the furniture, equipment, any type of marketing budget that you might want to have. And I'm going to talk more about what we may want to spend marketing dollars on when I get down here to number 3. So we'll just leave that generic. Um, Charles mentions getting a company car. And a lot of you, I think, a lot of you are asking about getting company cars. Yeah, it makes sense, right? You buy it under the company name. It's 100% tax deductible. We can use the budget to buy the car, or at least cover the first couple payments, because chances are the company car you're going to buy is probably going to cost more than 100,000. But it's who was it? I think it was Drake that said, "Hey, could you get multiple company cars?" Sure, it's very common to have multiple company cars, different cars for different purposes. So, from the perspective of the office budget, you manage the budget, you manage the P&L. Any questions on the budget? Yeah, Kenny mentions phone and utilities. That's right. Belzoni is asking, can it be a higher budget? Sure, sure. Yeah, if you feel like we need more, we can do more, but it's set up to include 100,000 for each branch office. But sure, we could do more if that's what you determine you need. All right, so now let's get into the office considerations because it ties in to number 1. So, as you're thinking about your office, if you want to have a branch office, what should it look like? Well, it's up to you, but obviously, you're probably going to need to have a waiting room. Why I say that is the purpose of having the local offices, the local presence, is it allows people to come to you instead of everything needing to be done remotely over Zoom or over the phone. So you want to be accessible. So having a waiting room, having a reception desk or area. So this gets back to payroll. You could run it as a one-person show if you wish, but chances are you'd want to at least have a receptionist. And again, following the SBA model, that's what we all had. We all had an office manager that served also as the receptionist. He or she answers the phones. He or she greets people when they come in, and then they can also help you with other activities, which we're going to get to in a moment. Obviously, you're going to want to have an office times in. So how many staff do you plan on having? If you want to just keep it simple and be just yourself, 1 office. If you plan on having other advisors, from the SBDC model, it was common to have the director, so you're the equivalent of the director, and then on top of the director, normally there were advisors. So, you can keep it simple to start, but chances are to really meet our potential, we're probably going to need more than yourself. You would want to run it and then have other advisors doing most of the work, most of the client interface. Here's the big one that I wanted to get to: a conference training room. Is it required? No, because again, this is not a franchise model. This is not, oh, pay us $100,000 and you got to do it exactly this way or you get in trouble. You can do it how you want. But education is a big part of what we do, right? We covered that all the way up here. One of the benefits of having a local branch office is getting in front of people, connecting with them, building a stronger relationship. So I would encourage you, as you're looking at an office, to get one that has space for a training room. Now, you could always go off-site to do your trainings, but now you're shuffling your computer, your projector, your paperwork, much less convenient than them coming to your office and being able to do the training there. What size of room? It's up to you. Again, obviously, the bigger the space, the more you're going to spend. But having at least, when we first got started, when we left the SBA and just launched our initiative, we had what we called an executive conference room. Essentially, it sat 8 people, and we did trainings for no more than 8. So, I mean, you can do it on a small scale, but it's up to you. Obviously, the more people we plan on helping, the more people we probably are going to plan to need to educate, and therefore we're going to need possibly a larger training room. but I'm going to talk about community involvement here in a minute, and it'll put some parameters on this. So, anyone have questions on office considerations? As far as freestanding or part of an office building, I mean, it's really your preference. I'm going to talk about having satellite offices in just a moment under the community involvement, but it's up to you. You're managing the P&L. It's yours. Kenny brings up a great point. Yeah, so well, and it ties into number three. We're going to want to be very visible in the community. And part of that, of course, is working with banks and key influencers, which we talked about here. And we'll train you and support you on how to do that. So it's not going to be a problem. But yes, it's best to have those bankers come to your office for the types of trainings that we're going to do, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. So, yeah, you want a good looking office. Looks like Christy's asking, what about like a kitchen or a commercial kitchen? That's a great point. Yeah, if you want to allocate the budget for that, having at least a food prep area, because what do you know? People love to be fed, right? So when you're doing your trainings, if you're able to feed them sandwiches or at least snacks and drinks. So yeah, be thoughtful. And it may be we start with kind of a basic office that you lease, and then maybe we end up buying an office building subsequently, and maybe from that we set up kind of an incubator, so we can get really fancy with it, but I just wanted to cover some of the basics. All right, number three is really where the rubber hits the road. So it's the most important aspect of today's training, because this helps you really, I think, understand the vision. So from a community involvement perspective, that's the primary reason that you would want to have a branch office, because you seem more legitimate, you seem more visible, you have a physical office. That doesn't mean that you can't do the same quality of deliverables from your back bedroom, but it just doesn't have the same perception. For us, we bought a commercial building with a good spot of land, and then people were critical. Oh, your office isn't nice enough. And it's like, well, it works. Oh, your office isn't nice enough. And so, of course, defensively, you want to ask, well, what kind of office do you own? Most people don't. But regardless, we went ahead and we've been spending a ton of money to build a new office building on the front of the same property, which we should be moving in here soon. They're even going to be working on that over the holiday weekend. They're coming out to do our credentialing inspection on Tuesday, so we need to try to have everything done by then. But regardless, having the physical office sets the tone for being involved with the community. So obviously, we need to identify key influencers. So, who are key influencers in this business to business space? Well, of course, the bankers, we've talked about that, chambers of commerce, accountants, business attorneys, website developers, and that's part of what we do when we come out and do the training. Because when we do this training, we prefer to come to you and do this training in your office. That's where we prefer to do it, because that's where the implementation is going to occur. But regardless, we're going to need to put together a list of who are the key influencers, and then we prioritize them as A, B, or C. A are the most important ones, such as the business bankers. Those business bankers need to know who you are and what you do. That's crucial. Now, there's also sub-tier and sub-tier lesser and lesser important, but we need to first identify who are the players so we can develop and maintain a relationship with them. We're going to help you do that. So that's important. Similar to that, you have the chambers of commerce. And again, you're managing the P&L, but I would recommend identifying every chamber of commerce in your county, and I would strongly consider joining and being active in those chambers. And you might say, well, that's going to take some time. Well, yeah, so when we're back on payroll, we may want to have kind of a communication specialist, someone that's kind of PR. They don't need to know all that you know. They don't need to be the owner of the branch, but you could do that. But someone that's visible out in the community where businesses are gathering. Now, with chambers of commerce, in many cases, and we did this with the SBA, In many cases, well, first you got to look at your county, your territory. How big is it geographically? I don't really mean how many people, but how big of a spread. And it may make sense to, in addition to your office, to have kind of a hub and spoke approach. So maybe we approach a chamber of commerce that's 15, 20 minutes away from your office and say, hey, could we have a conference room at your chamber to use every Wednesday, for example? So then you're able to meet with their chamber clients at their chamber office on that routine, regular, rotating basis. I know that was huge for me because you all may not understand how the SBA works, but the SBA works in many ways similar to the SBDC. So with uh, with um, with that, we need it works similar to business bankers, I meant to say. So we needed to go out and develop clients and help clients raise capital. There were metrics we were held accountable for. So I was very good at developing those community relationships, going to chamber executive directors, and actually getting part-time office space. So it doesn't become your primary office, but it's like having a satellite office. Why would you want to do that? Well, let's take a given chamber of commerce. Those members know the chamber of commerce initially better than they know you. Therefore, if you're doing almost some co-branding, some collaborative events with those chambers, you'll draw in more clients. So that is great. We can do some similar activities with libraries. So we did that as well at the SBA. We would have access in more rural areas to go into a library on a scheduled basis. Maybe it's once or twice a month for more rural areas and do our consultations there. So a lot of options of getting out in front of the community. Anyone have questions on that? And again, we're going to work with you to come up with a plan. A big part of what we're going to do when we do this in-person training with you is to come up with a very detailed plan. We can share with you best practices, what's worked, some pitfalls. Ultimately, it'll be up to you. I'm going to add one more item here, and it's going to be a bit mind-blowing. So if it's too much, you can disregard it. But I was visiting with, I believe it was France yesterday, and he and Kenny and a couple of you said, um, how, the question was, how can you monetize the opening of multiple branch offices? So, for example, and forgive me, Kenny, if it wasn't you, but I think it was in DC. Kenny has a contact that's interested in opening the branch office in Washington, DC. So, what you can do is what's called a split equity deal. So, you can go out and start finding branch offices, people that want to own a branch office, and do a split with them. So maybe it's a 51% you, 49% them, or you can change those percentages however you want. But essentially, you have an equity interest in multiple branch offices, but you have a partner that's actually going to run the local branch office because it'd be very hard for one person to run multiple offices. But instead, you could have an equity interest and have ownership, partial ownership of multiple branch offices across the country. So if that's too much for you, that's okay. But essentially, you would find the people, they would get the branch office, they would pay the license fee, not you, but then you would have an agreement with them that's some sort of split deal. And it could be 90-10 or whatever you want, but that's an advanced strategy for those of you that really see the monetary opportunity. You want to have your fingers in multiple markets rather than trying to do everything yourself. Partner with a person in each market, allow them to be the director, allow them to do the work, but then you're peeling off a portion of their revenue, the profit. All right, with that being said, resource contact information is the same. Tech support line's the best way to go, 903-347-8042. You can always schedule a call. If you want to become a grant coordinator, 509 Pacific. If you want to have a branch office, then you're going to want to text us and let us know the county and state that you want to be in, and then we can see if it's available. With that being said, we will not be together tomorrow because of the holiday. We'll be back on Monday morning. Let us know if you need anything. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.